The sound of my phone on the nightstand is a low, insistent buzz. A vibration against wood that feels like a warning. I reach for it without opening my eyes, my body still heavy with the unsatisfying sleep you get when there's a stranger lying next to you who just happens to be your husband. My thumb swipes across the screen, out of muscle memory. A notification from Instagram.
Hot dog.
My eyes blink open, adjusting to the pale blue light of the phone in the dark room. It's a picture. A woman I don't know, though her face is vaguely familiar, is smiling, her head resting on a man's shoulder. The man is Mark, my husband. They're on a boat, the sun setting behind them in a vulgar blaze of orange and pink. He looks relaxed, happy in a way I haven't seen in years. His arm is wrapped tightly around her waist. Her hand is resting on his, her nails painted a bright, confident red. My breath catches in my throat. It's the caption that lands the final blow. A single sentence, glowing in the darkness of my bedroom. Finally able to share my real happiness with the world. I love this man more than words can say. Underneath, a string of heart emojis. The air in my lungs turns to ice. The world shrinks down to the four corners of this glowing screen. And then, from the other side of the king-sized bed, I hear it. Not a word, not a gasp. A scream. A raw, guttural sound of pure, unadulterated panic. Mark is sitting bolt upright, his own phone clutched in his hand, his face a mask of horror. He's seen it too. The happiness he deserved, now on public display for the whole world to see. And in that moment, watching the architect of my misery begin to crumble, I feel nothing at all. Just a cold, silent, ringing in my ears. The world can fall apart in the time it takes to refresh a page. The ground can shatter right under your feet with a single click. If you've ever felt that moment, that sickening lurch when everything you thought was true turns out to be a lie, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're new here, please subscribe. It helps me share more stories like this one. Just 6 months ago, our life was a carefully curated masterpiece of success. At least on the surface. We were Mark and Anna, the co-founders of Innovate, one of the fastest-growing marketing firms in the city. We were the power couple, the ones who had it all. We'd met in college, two ambitious kids with more dreams than money. We built our company from a spare bedroom in a tiny apartment, fueled by cheap coffee and a shared vision. He was the charismatic face of the company, the brilliant salesman who could charm a client into a 7-figure deal over a single lunch. I was the strategist, the architect behind the scenes, building the campaigns, managing the teams, making sure the engine of our creation ran smoothly. Our skills were perfectly complementary. For 15 years, we were an unstoppable team. Our house was a testament to that success. A modern glass and steel structure overlooking the city lights. It was minimalist, clean, and beautiful. It was also cold. The echo of my footsteps on the polished concrete floors often felt like the only sound in the house. The life we had built together had become so big it had pushed us apart, leaving a vast, empty space between us. We passed each other in the hallways like polite colleagues. Our conversations became agenda items, board meetings, quarterly reports, client acquisitions. The passion that had once fueled our late-night work sessions had been replaced by a quiet, efficient professionalism. I told myself it was a phase, the price of success, the natural ebb and flow of a long-term marriage. I tried to bridge the gap. I'd suggest weekends away, but he was always too busy. I'd try to cook his favorite dinner, and he'd call to say he was stuck at the office, working late. Those late nights became more and more frequent. A knot of anxiety began to form in my stomach, a constant, low-level hum of wrongness. I'd lie awake in our cold, empty bed and listen for the sound of his car in the driveway, my mind racing. I started noticing small things. The way he angled his phone away from me. A new, expensive cologne he started wearing. The way he'd flinch almost imperceptibly if I touched his arm unexpectedly. He was becoming a stranger to me, and the distance felt less like an ebb and more like a continental drift. I saw him in our weekly executive meetings, and he was a different person. He was alive, engaged, charming. He would laugh with our employees, his eyes sparkling. Then he would come home, and the light would go out. The mask of the happy, successful CEO would fall away, leaving a tired, irritable man who looked at me like I was part of the furniture. He started dismissing my ideas in meetings, subtly at first, then more overtly. He'd say things like, "Anna has a more traditional approach, but I think we need to be more aggressive here." He, who had once called me his secret weapon, was now framing me as a relic. I felt like I was being slowly, methodically erased from the life we had built together. My desire wasn't for more success or a bigger house. All I wanted was to find my husband again, to fix the cracks that were threatening to shatter our foundation. I just didn't realize he was the one holding the hammer. The hammer fell on a Tuesday. It was raining, a miserable, gray drizzle that matched the color of my mood. He had supposedly been at an all-night work session finalizing a pitch. I was up early making coffee when his gym bag, which he'd tossed by the door, fell over. A folder slid out. It wasn't a work folder. It was from a hotel. The Grand Elysian, downtown. A receipt was sticking out from the top. My hand trembled as I picked it up. It was for a room. Checked in the previous afternoon. Checked out an hour ago. 2 breakfasts charged to the room. My heart started beating a frantic, painful rhythm against my ribs. It wasn't the receipt that broke me, though. It was the other piece of paper tucked inside. A child's drawing. A clumsy, colorful stick figure of a man and a woman holding hands under a smiling sun. And at the bottom, in messy crayon letters, it said, "For Chloe and her new friend." I stood there in the kitchen, the smell of coffee brewing, the sound of the rain against the window, and I felt the floor drop out from under me. I walked into the bedroom. He was in the shower. I saw his phone on the nightstand. I had never looked at his phone. Not once in 15 years. It felt like a sacred boundary. But the boundary was already a smoking crater. I picked it up. It was unlocked. A text message was on the screen. From Chloe. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. See you at the office." When he came out of the bathroom, a towel around his waist, humming a tune, he saw me standing there. He saw the hotel receipt in my hand. He saw the look on my face. The humming stopped. The color drained from his face. For a moment, a flash of panic, of guilt, crossed his features. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by something else. Something cold and hard. Resignation. Relief. "Anna," he started. I held up the receipt. My voice was surprisingly steady. "2 breakfasts, Mark? Who's Chloe?" He didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just sighed, a long, weary sound, as if I were the one inconveniencing him. He walked over to his closet, turning his back on me as he pulled out a shirt. "It's not what you think," he said, the classic, insulting line of every cheater in history. "Isn't it?" I asked, my voice cracking now. "Isn't it exactly what I think? You spent the night in a hotel with another woman while you told me you were working." He turned around then, buttoning his shirt. His eyes were flat, devoid of emotion. "Look, I wasn't going to do it like this." "Do what like this, Mark? Humiliate me? Lie to my face?" And that's when he said it. The words that would echo in my head for months. The words that changed everything. He looked me straight in the eye, his expression one of grim justification, as if he were the victim. "I deserve to be happy, Anna," he said, his voice quiet but firm. I deserve to be happy. And I haven't been. Not for a long time." He said it so simply, with such profound entitlement. As if his happiness was a constitutional right that superseded his vows, our history, our entire life. He wasn't apologizing. He was declaring his independence. He was telling me that my pain was irrelevant, a necessary casualty in his noble quest for personal satisfaction. In that moment, the man I had loved, the boy I had built a company with from nothing, died. And in his place stood a cold, selfish stranger who was already looking past me, toward his new, happy life. The war had begun, and I hadn't even known I was on a battlefield. The silence that followed his declaration was heavier than any argument. It filled the house, seeping into the walls, chilling the air. We became ghosts, haunting the beautiful, empty rooms of our life. We slept in separate wings of the house. I'd hear his car leave early in the morning and return late at night. We were living parallel lives under the same roof, the tension a thick, unbreathable fog. The hardest part was the office. Innovate was my baby just as much as it was his. It was my sanctuary, the place where I was competent and in control. Now, it was a minefield. We had to pretend. We had to sit in board meetings and smile, presenting a united front to the employees and clients who had known us as a team for over a decade. The performance was exhausting. Every polite nod, every forced smile felt like a fresh betrayal. I tried to be the bigger person, the one who handles things with grace. I was still in shock, operating on a strange, numb autopilot. One evening, I found him in the kitchen, pouring a glass of whiskey. I took a deep breath. "Mark, we need to talk about this. Maybe we could try therapy. Or a trial separation. We have to figure out a way to do this without destroying everything." He took a sip of his whiskey, not looking at me. He just stared out the floor-to-ceiling window at the city lights. "There's nothing to talk about, Anna. I've already spoken to my lawyer. He'll be in touch with you." My blood ran cold. "Your lawyer? You've already hired a lawyer?" "I want this to be quick and clean," he said, finally turning to face me. His eyes were like polished stones. "I'm prepared to make you a generous offer to buy out your shares in the company." The breath left my body in a painful rush. It was one thing to leave our marriage. It was another thing entirely to try and take my company. "Buy me out," I whispered, the words tasting like poison. "Mark, I built this company with you. It's half mine." "It's not practical for us to keep working together," he said, his tone infuriatingly reasonable. "It's not good for the business. This is the best way forward. For everyone." For everyone. He meant for him. He didn't just want a new life, he wanted my old one too. He wanted the company, the success, the empire we had built, and he wanted me gone. The numbness that had been protecting me began to crack, and underneath it was a deep, simmering rage. This wasn't just an affair. This was a coup. His first move was subtle. He called an urgent leadership meeting that I was somehow not invited to. I only found out when my head of design, a young man I had personally mentored, asked me why I wasn't there. When I confronted Mark, he feigned surprise. "Oh, my assistant must have forgotten to add you to the invite. It was just a minor logistics meeting anyway. Nothing important, but I knew it was a lie. It was a test. A way to show the senior staff that my authority was waning." Then the project started to shift. A major new client, one I had spent months courting, was suddenly reassigned to another team leader. The official reason was to balance the workload, but the message was clear. I was being sidelined. He was a master of corporate warfare. Everything was done with plausible deniability, couched in the language of efficiency and business strategy. He was poisoning the well, drop by drop. The whispers started next. I'd walk into the break room, and conversations would stop. People would avoid my gaze. I heard secondhand that Mark was telling people he was worried about me, that the stress of our personal situation was affecting my judgment. He was painting me as the unstable, emotional woman, the classic, sexist trope. He was building a narrative to justify pushing me out. The biggest blow came when I finally found out who Chloe was. I had avoided asking. I think a part of me didn't want to know. But one afternoon, I saw Mark laughing with a group of junior employees by the coffee machine. He had his hand on the arm of a young woman. She was beautiful, in that effortless way that 20-somethings are. She was looking up at him with pure adoration in her eyes. It was the girl from the photo on the boat. And I recognized her. Chloe. A junior graphic designer we had hired about a year ago. She was talented, but she was also ambitious and, I now realized, naive. He hadn't just had an affair. He'd had it with one of our own employees. Someone who worked for me. Someone I had approved the hiring of. The betrayal was dizzying. He had brought his new life into my sanctuary and flaunted it right under my nose. The humiliation was a physical thing, a hot flush that spread from my chest to my face. I had to retreat to my office and lock the door, my hands shaking so hard I could barely turn the key. I wasn't just losing my husband. I was losing my reputation, my authority, and the respect I had worked my entire life to earn. The challenges were no longer just rising. They were a tidal wave, and I was drowning. The day the world tilted completely off its axis started like any other day in my new, fractured reality. I walked into the main conference room for the quarterly board meeting. The air was thick with a tension so palpable you could taste it. Mark was already there, standing at the head of the table, looking confident and in control. He gave me a curt, professional nod, as if we were merely colleagues with a minor disagreement. Our board members, people I had known for years, shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their eyes darting between me and Mark. They knew something was wrong, but they only knew his version of the story, the one where I was the liability. Mark started the meeting. He went through the quarterly numbers, which were excellent as always. Then he paused, his expression turning serious. And that brings me to a delicate but necessary point of discussion, he began, his voice smooth and practiced. The future leadership of this company. My stomach clenched. This was it. As some of you know, he continued, his gaze sweeping across the board but deliberately avoiding me, Anna and I are going through a personal transition. And while we've both tried to maintain professionalism, I believe the current situation is becoming untenable and poses a significant risk to the stability and future growth of Innovate. He had a presentation ready. Slides filled with corporate jargon about streamlining leadership and mitigating internal conflict. It was a masterclass in manipulation. He was using our shared success as a weapon against me. He then presented his offer, a formal proposal to the board to buy out my shares. The number he presented was an insult. It was a fraction of what my half of the company was worth. It was a lowball offer designed to force me out, backed by the implicit threat that if I fought it, I would be dragging the company through a messy public battle. I believe this is a generous offer that allows Anna to exit gracefully and provides the company with the unified leadership it needs to move forward, he concluded, his face a perfect mask of regretful necessity. I looked around the table. I saw it in their faces. Pity, hesitation, but also consideration. Some of them were buying it. They were businessmen. They feared instability more than anything. A clean break, even an unjust one, was preferable to a protracted fight. I saw my life's work, my legacy, slipping through my fingers. I tried to speak, to defend myself, but my voice felt trapped in my throat. I felt small, cornered, and utterly, hopelessly alone. He was going to win. He was going to take everything. I left the meeting in a daze. I don't remember walking to my car. I just remember sitting in the driver's seat in the concrete silence of the parking garage, the keys dangling from my hand. The full weight of my situation crashed down on me. I was about to lose my marriage, my financial security, and the company I had poured my heart and soul into for 15 years. All because my husband had decided he deserved to be happy. It was the ultimate, crushing defeat. That night, unable to sleep, I was wandering through the dark, silent house when I heard voices from Mark's study. The door was slightly ajar. I stopped, my heart pounding. It was him on the phone. His voice was low and intimate, the way it used to be with me. "I know, baby, I know it's hard," he was saying. "Just be patient. The board meeting went well today. They see my point. It's just a matter of time now." A pause. "Of course, I'm serious. The senior VP spot is yours as soon as this is finalized. We'll run this place together." Another pause, and then a soft laugh. "Soon, this will all be over. It'll just be you and me." I leaned against the wall, the cold plaster seeping through my shirt. He wasn't just replacing me in his bed. He was replacing me in the boardroom. He was promising my life, my job, my future to this girl. This junior designer who he was seducing with promises of power. He wasn't just getting rid of his wife, he was grooming her replacement. The sheer, calculated cruelty of it stole my breath. This wasn't a crisis anymore. This was an assassination. And I was the target. Rock bottom wasn't a place, it was a feeling. The feeling of being completely and utterly erased. I stood there in the dark hallway, listening to him whisper promises to his mistress, and something inside me broke. But it wasn't the kind of break that shatters you into a million pieces. It was the kind of break you see in a frozen river, a loud, definitive crack that signals a fundamental shift. The tears that had been my constant companions for weeks dried up. The grief that had hollowed me out solidified into something cold and hard. Anger.
Apure, glacial rage.
I went back to my room, but not to cry. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my reflection in the dark window. The woman staring back at me was a stranger. Her face was pale, her eyes haunted. She looked defeated. She looked like a victim. And I hated her. His words echoed in my mind, but this time they sounded different. I deserved to be happy. It was no longer a justification for his betrayal. It was a battle cry. A declaration of his own selfish needs above all else. He saw me as an obstacle, a problem to be managed, minimized, and ultimately removed. He wasn't fighting for his happiness. He was fighting to take mine. And in that moment of absolute clarity, I made a decision. I was done being the graceful, wounded wife. I was done playing defense. I was done trying to salvage the wreckage of our marriage. The marriage was dead. He had killed it. My new purpose was singular and sharp. I was going to save my company. And I was going to do it by any means necessary. The sadness was gone, replaced by a strange, exhilarating calm. The game had changed. He thought he was playing chess, moving his pieces to corner my king. He didn't realize I was about to flip the whole board over. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. And he had no idea who he was really fighting. I wasn't the emotional, unstable woman he was painting me to be. I was the co-founder and chief strategist of Innovate. And I was about to design the most important campaign of my life. My mind, which had been clouded with grief and shock, was suddenly sharp. I was a strategist. It's what I did. I saw patterns, I identified weaknesses, and I built systems. For weeks, I had been looking at this problem emotionally. Now I looked at it strategically. What was Mark's weakness? It was his arrogance. His belief that he was smarter, smoother, and more entitled than anyone else in the room. And his other weakness?
Chloe.
Not Chloe herself, but his underestimation of her. He saw her as a prize, a beautiful, adoring accessory to his new life. He didn't see her as a person with her own fears, insecurities, and ambitions. He saw her as a pawn. And pawns, I knew, could be incredibly powerful if you knew how to move them. I didn't sleep that night. I went in my home office and I pulled out a document I hadn't looked at in years, the Innovate Employee Handbook. We had written it together back when we were still a team. We had been so proud of it, so determined to create a fair and professional workplace. My fingers flipped through the pages, past the mission statement and the vacation policy, until I found what I was looking for. Article 5, Code of Conduct. And there it was in black and white. Section 3. Relationships between employees in a direct supervisory or reporting line are strictly prohibited to avoid conflicts of interest, favoritism, and potential claims of harassment. And then, Article 7. Public Representation. Section 1. Employees must not engage in any conduct, either within or outside of work, that could bring the company into public disrepute or negatively impact its brand, reputation, or client relationships. I had written that section myself. I remember arguing for its inclusion, wanting to protect our brand from the kind of scandals that had taken down other companies. Mark had called it overkill. "We're not a bank, Anna," he'd said. "We're a creative agency," but I had insisted. And now, those words on the page felt like a loaded gun. Mark, as CEO, was in a direct supervisory line over every single employee in the company, including a junior graphic designer named Chloe. Their affair wasn't just a personal matter. It was a flagrant violation of the very policies he was sworn to uphold. My plan began to form. I couldn't be the one to expose him. If I went to the board with this, it would look like a bitter wife's revenge. It would be my word against his. He would spin it, claim I was manufacturing a crisis. I needed the proof to be public, undeniable, and not from me. I needed Chloe to do it for me. So, I started digging. Not into Mark, but into her. I spent hours scrolling through her social media. Her public profiles were a curated feed of brunch photos, inspirational quotes, and selfies. She presented a life of effortless cool, but underneath it, I saw the cracks. I saw the deep-seated need for validation. Every post was a performance. She wasn't just dating the CEO, she was living out a fantasy. She was the star of her own romantic movie, the young heroine who had captured the heart of the powerful, misunderstood man. She believed she was a savior, the one who was rescuing him from his cold, loveless marriage. Mark had fed her a story, and she had swallowed it whole. I knew I couldn't just tell her the truth. She wouldn't believe me. She would see me as the jealous, crazy ex-wife from Mark's stories. I didn't need to push her. I just needed to create the right conditions for her to feel insecure. I needed to plant a seed of doubt, not about his love for her, but about his promises. My strategy was simple, and it was ruthless. I needed to use the office gossip mill, a force of nature that I had always despised, but now saw as a powerful tool. I created a new, anonymous email address. A simple, untraceable account. From that account, I sent a single email. It wasn't to the board. It wasn't to HR. It was to Brenda in accounting. Brenda, who lived for office drama, whose desk was the central hub of all company rumors. The email was short and cryptic. I wrote it carefully, making it sound like a disgruntled employee who had seen too much. Funny how things work at Innovate, it read. The CEO is pushing his own wife out, and everyone's pretending it's about business, but some of us know he's just clearing the way for his new favorite. I wonder who's going to get that senior VP of creative spot he just invented out of thin air? The one he promised to his pretty little pet project. Guess some people get ahead the old-fashioned way. I didn't mention Chloe's name. I didn't have to. Brenda would connect the dots. I hit send, and it felt like launching a torpedo into the water. I knew it would take a few days to reach its target, but I also knew it was unstoppable. The rumor would spread, and like a game of telephone, it would be twisted and embellished along the way. The story that would eventually reach Chloe's ears wouldn't be my carefully worded email. It would be a much uglier version, that Mark was just using her, that he was dangling a promotion to keep her quiet while he secured the company, and that he would dump her the second he got what he wanted. I watched it happen from a distance. I saw the whispers, the sideways glances in Chloe's direction. I saw the change of her posture, the confident swagger replaced by a nervous tension. I saw her trying to laugh it off with her friends, her smile a little too bright, a little too brittle. She was a good designer, but she was a terrible actress. Then came the confrontation I had been waiting for. I saw her pull Mark into an empty conference room one afternoon. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see the frantic, desperate energy coming from her, the way she was gesturing with her hands. And I could see him, doing what he did best, charming, placating, reassuring. He put his hands on her shoulders, looked her in the eyes, probably told her she was the only one he cared about, that the rumors were lies spread by jealous people. He was putting out the fire, but I knew I had already soaked the ground in gasoline. He had calmed her down, but he had not extinguished her fear. Her insecurity was now a roaring fire. She needed to prove the rumors wrong. She needed to prove to everyone, to the office, to her friends, to me, and most of all, to herself, that she wasn't just a temporary fling. She wasn't a pawn. She was the queen. She needed to stake her claim in a way that was public, permanent, and undeniable. And I knew exactly how a girl like Chloe would do that. It was only a matter of time. All I had to do was wait for my phone to buzz. And then it happens, just as I knew it would. I'm lying in bed in the pre-dawn darkness, the space beside me cold and empty. The buzz of the phone on the nightstand is a quiet executioner's drum. I pick it up. The screen glows. The Instagram notification. The picture of them on the boat, his arm around her, the sunset bleeding across the sky. And her caption, A declaration of war she thinks is a declaration of love. Finally able to share my real happiness with the world. I love this man more than words can say. It's a masterpiece of self-destruction. And in that moment, a strange, cold pity for her washes over me. She thinks this is her victory. She thinks she's securing her future. She has no idea she just signed his corporate death warrant. And her own. A moment later, the scream rips through the silence of the house. It's a raw, animal sound of pure panic. I hear scrambling, a thud as a phone is dropped. Mark bursts into my room, not even bothering to knock. He's in his boxers, his hair a mess, his face chalk white. He's holding his phone out to me, his hand trembling violently. "Did you see this? Did you see what she did?" He hisses, his voice a strangled whisper of disbelief. I don't answer. I just look at him, my expression a perfect, calm blank. "You have to do something," he says, his voice rising in panic. "Call her. Tell her to take it down.
Now."
I slowly sit up in bed, pulling the covers around me. I look at this man, this titan of industry, this master manipulator, and I see a terrified little boy who has just realized the game is real. "Why would I do that, Mark?" I ask, my voice quiet and even. His eyes widen. He looks at me, really looks at me for the first time in months. And I think in that moment he finally understands. He sees the coldness in my eyes. He sees the absence of fear, of pain, of love. He sees a stranger. "You," he stammers, the accusation dying on his lips. "What did you do?" I give him a small, sad smile. "Me? I didn't do anything."
She did.
"And you did. You both just showed the world exactly who you are." His phone starts ringing. A shrill, insistent sound. He looks at the screen. The name, Richard Davies, glows. The chairman of our board. He ignores it. It immediately rings again. Then my phone starts buzzing. A text from our corporate lawyer. "Anna, call me immediately. Urgent." Then another call comes through on Mark's phone. And another. The digital world he used to command is now turning on him, a swarm of angry hornets. He stumbles back, looking from his phone to me, his face a mess of confusion and terror. The architect is trapped in his own collapsing building. And I just sit there in the quiet eye of the hurricane he created, and I watch. The next morning, I call the emergency board meeting. I walk into the conference room, and the atmosphere is electric. The board members are all there, their faces grim. Mark is already seated at the head of the table, but today he doesn't look like a king on his throne. He looks like a man on death row. He's pale, his eyes are bloodshot, and he hasn't shaved. He looks at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. I don't sit in my usual chair. I walk to the front of the room, to the presentation screen. I don't need slides. I don't need a presentation. I just need 2 pieces of evidence. "Good morning," I say, my voice clear and strong, cutting through the tense silence. "I'm sure you're all aware of a certain social media post that has been circulating since last night." A few of them nod. Richard Davies, the chairman, just steeples his fingers and watches me, his expression unreadable. "This isn't about my personal life." I continue, my gaze fixed on the board, refusing to look at Mark. "This isn't about a marriage ending. This is about a catastrophic failure of leadership and a direct violation of corporate policy." On the large screen, I project a screenshot of Chloe's Instagram post. The happy couple on the boat, smiling for the camera. Next to it, I project the text from the Innovate Employee Handbook. Article 5, Section 3, prohibiting relationships between supervisors and subordinates. And Article 7, Section 1, prohibiting conduct that brings the company into public disrepute. Our CEO is in a relationship with a junior employee who is his direct subordinate, I state, my voice devoid of emotion. He has not only violated our code of conduct, but by allowing this relationship to become public, he has exposed this company to a massive potential lawsuit for favoritism and sexual harassment. He has made our brand a subject of public gossip and ridicule. He has, in short, failed in his most basic duty to protect this company. I let the silence hang in the air. The evidence is irrefutable. It's not about my feelings. It's about liability. It's about brand damage. It's about the bottom line. It's the only language they truly understand.
Mark tries to speak.
This is a private matter. She posted it without my consent. This is a witch hunt orchestrated by my wife. But his words are weak, desperate. The damage is done. Richard Davies holds up a hand, silencing him. He looks at Mark, not with anger, but with a cold disappointment. Mark, the post has been screenshotted and sent to 3 major industry blogs. Our head of PR is already fielding calls from reporters. Our stock is projected to dip at opening. This is no longer a private matter. The vote is a formality. One by one, they raise their hands. A unanimous decision to terminate his employment for cause, effective immediately. He loses his title. He loses his office. He loses his unvested shares and his multi-million-dollar severance package. Everything he tried to take from me, gone in an instant. They then vote to appoint me as interim CEO. I look across the polished table at the man who is my husband, the man who told me he deserved to be happy. His face is gray, slack with shock. He looks broken. He pushed me to the edge, expecting me to fall. He never imagined I would learn to fly. In the sterile quiet of the boardroom, I feel the ground, solid and firm, beneath my feet for the first time in a very long time. The victory doesn't taste sweet. It tastes like iron and ice. It tastes like survival. The weeks that follow are a blur of lawyers and paperwork. The divorce is swift. Without the leverage of the company, Mark has no fight left in him. He takes the settlement I offer, a fair price for his initial investment in the company we built, a ghost of the fortune he thought he would have. He is a ghost himself, a man stripped of his power and prestige. I hear through the grapevine that he and Chloe didn't last. The fantasy couldn't survive the harsh reality of unemployment and public shame. She quit the company the day he was fired, her own career ambitions turning to ash. The office is quiet for a while. The whispers die down, replaced by a sense of cautious stability. I work tirelessly, not just to manage the PR fallout, but to rebuild the culture of the company. I promote from within, rewarding the talent and loyalty that Mark had overlooked in his quest for power. I am firm, I am fair, and I am in control. Some nights, I sit alone in the CEO's office, my office, and look out at the sprawling city lights. The view is the same one Mark used to look at when he told me he was buying me out. I think about the 15 years we spent building this place. The shared dreams, the late nights, the laughter. There's a sadness there, a ghost of a life that was. The betrayal left a scar that will never fully fade. But as I sit in this chair, the chair he tried to take from me, I don't feel bitterness. I feel a quiet, profound sense of peace. He went searching for happiness, believing it was something he could take, something he was owed. He blew up our life in his selfish pursuit of it. But happiness isn't a prize you win or a thing you steal. I found mine in the ruins. I found it in my own resilience. I found it in the quiet strength I never knew I had. I didn't just get revenge. I got my life back. I saved my company, my legacy, myself. He didn't just lose his job. He lost the respect of everyone he knew. He lost the future he was so certain he deserved. He said he deserved to be happy. And in the end, I think we both got what we deserved. Thanks for being here with me for this story. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.